Alright, so for most of my fans or subscribers, I'm not sure if your generation even has ice cream trucks anymore. For myself, in the 90s and 2000s, there were ice cream trucks, all around the place. I remember I used to go down from my building and get this, popsicle thing. It had, three colors. It had red, white, and blue, and it was, this flat kind of popsicle, and I would always get that. But what if the ice cream truck and the ice cream man turned deadly? What if what was in the vanilla ice cream was more than just vanilla and something else as well? Well, anyways, grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary stories about the horrifying ice cream truck. The Ice Cream Man. The personal part of this story was told to me by my friend's older brother Jay and his mom. The rest is common knowledge around my hometown. When Jay was about 10 years old, in 1992, an ice cream truck started driving around town. It was the middle of summer. The truck stopped at all the lakes and parks in our town, and nobody thought much of it because our town is small and rural, and of course, we have an ice cream truck. Being 10 years old, Jay was excited whenever he heard the ice cream truck drive around. That is, he was excited until he actually convinced his mom to give him some money and let him buy an ice cream. So he sprints to the truck, which stops a block from his house, but he gets a very funny feeling from the guy. He is 1/4 Native American, his mom is 1/2 and is an actual medicine woman, and the whole family believes heavily in trusting their intuitions. So Jay backs away and goes home, even though there was a group of 3 or 4 boys at the truck already. He tells his mom about this unexplainable feeling of unease, and when he saw this man, and his mom tells him to stay away if the man didn't feel right. A couple weeks later, 2 boys go missing while they were out at a park. Their moms had turned their backs for less than a minute. At first, it was assumed that they went exploring the nearby creek looking for salamanders. But after hours of searching, it comes out that the last vehicle seen in the area was the ice cream truck. Then, the truck stopped showing up for a few days. Cue the police asking the town officials about the ice cream man. It turns out that nobody knows this guy. He didn't fill out paperwork or get a license, or whatever it is you have to do to drive your child bait through town. Nobody had thought anything of it, cause this guy just showed up and seamlessly started driving his route one day. I guess he had scouted the locale before in another car, or on foot, and picked out all the areas with kids. The driver, being a sick fuck, couldn't contain himself for long, and started driving his truck around the shittiest of my town, 7 trailer parks a week after the boys went missing. The trailer park is literally on the wrong side of the tracks, with a railroad running right down the side, and our town dump just a little farther down the street. It's at the very edge of town, with nothing else around it but empty woods. I forgot to mention, my town is in the rural Michigan, so this trailer park was about a mile deep into the woods, and it was creepy as fuck, even without a pedo on the loose. So the cops get called, and get reports that the guy is living in this trailer park. They find his truck with a tarp thrown over it, and bust into the nearby trailer and arrest him. Since this is where the local legend starts taking over, I don't really know what they found inside the trailer. I have heard that the trailer was full of memorabilia from past children. I have heard that there were actual body parts found, and I have heard it was just a shitty trailer that looked like a hobo with a roofing plastic fetish had lived there. I do know that the guy ended up confessing after police found some evidence in his trailer, and telling the police that he kidnapped, raped, and murdered the 2 boys, finally dropping their bodies at the dump down the street. It was the grisliest thing to happen in my town's history. And a few years later, when I was growing up, things were much more strict. There are cameras at all the parks now, an organized neighborhood watch program, and a see something, say something law was enacted. Once smartphones became popular, I downloaded the sex offender database app and set it to my hometown. Holy shit! My hometown is sex offender central. There are a dozen sex offenders living in the downtown area, maybe 10 blocks by 10 blocks, and over 3 dozen within the boundaries of my school district. Hell, One lived less than 1/4 a mile away from me on the same dark wooded dirt road. I have gone running in the middle of the night down that road more times than I can count. Why I don't eat ice cream anymore? Hey everyone, I'm brand new to Reddit and this is my very first post, so sorry if there are any formatting errors. When I was little, I spent a lot of time at the park. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she'd take me and my friends there almost every day during the summer, and if we were lucky, she'd buy us something from the ice cream truck. It was one of those lucky days when this story takes place. I was 6 or 7 years old, and my mom had taken me and 3 girls from the neighborhood to play at the park. It was sunny and warm and pretty much one of those absolutely idyllic days you see in the movies. Everyone was in a good mood, my mom included. When we heard the ice cream truck approaching, she gave us all some money to buy treats, opting to hang back and chat with a friend. After all, we weren't leaving her sight, so nothing bad could happen. The ice cream truck wasn't the one we usually saw, but that wasn't unheard of. There were quite a few that drove around town, and they'd all compete to hit the park crowd. This one looked kind of run down, but when you're 7 years old, it doesn't matter, ice cream is ice cream. My friends and I raced to get in line, and we were delighted to be the first ones there. The ice cream man seemed just as excited to see us. "I have a special treat for you pretty girls today," he told us as we handed him our money, silencing a request for our usual favorites. We all were skeptical, but he kept insisting that this special treat would be much yummier than any ice cream we'd had before, so we all shrugged and agreed. Like I said, ice cream is ice cream. The man disappeared back into the truck for a few minutes, and we could hear him giggling. Now I'd find it creepy, but at the time we all thought it was funny. A few minutes later, he handed us what looked like ordinary ice cream sundaes. "I promise they're extra good, so don't waste any," he told us with a wink. As we started walking back to my mom, the ice cream truck left quickly. That was when I remember thinking something was off. The trucks usually stay much longer than that, getting as much business from all the kids as they could. That did not stop me from eating the ice cream though, but as I was eating it, I noticed that something tasted off. Soon, my friends were all complaining that our ice cream tasted funny. My mom had also noticed how quickly the truck had left, so she insisted on tasting mine just to be safe. I'll never forget how quickly she marched us out of that park that day, or how horrified she looked. At the time, I didn't understand why she was so upset, until years later she told me. The ice cream had tasted like semen. The ice cream truck guy had masturbated into our sundaes. Horror story part 2, realizing your mom recognizes the taste of semen. The police questioned my friends and I about the man in the truck, but none of us were able to give a description. I think they must have tested the DNA inside the ice cream, but I don't really remember much from the whole investigation, because my mom shielded me from all of it. I do know, however, that they never caught the guy. So creepy ice cream dude, let's not meet again. I don't scream for ice cream anymore. Let me just preface this with the fact that this was the one time my parents let me stay home unsupervised for an entire day without much of an older babysitter. And so my story begins. It all started one hot, boring afternoon in the suburbs. I was spending the day with some of the neighborhood kids while our parents were at work. Although I was only 10 years old, my parents let me spend the day with the 2 girls that lived across the street, because the oldest of the 2 sisters was 13. The other, my best friend Sarah at the time, was 9 years old. We were laying out on the trampoline, playing the "What do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do?" game. Then, we heard that exciting little jingle in the distance, the ice cream man. We all started scrambling out the door after the older sister, Tammy, who had the money. We rushed down the street to wait for the ice cream man, joining the group of boys who were outside playing lacrosse at the time. As soon as we walked up and saw the driver, I got an eerie feeling. Something just seemed off about him. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, considering he had a massively wretched scar down the side of his face. But he didn't stop smiling. It was a sinister type smile, coupled with an unrelenting gaze fixed right on us. We quickly bought our ice cream and bubblegum and left. As we were walking back towards our cul-de-sac, Bossy Tammy ordered us to stop and sit on our neighbor's driveway and eat our ice cream. She said, "Look, I've heard stories on the news about these guys stealing kids, so let's just sit here on Ms. Day's driveway until he drives away." Up until this point, Tammy had a history of telling us bogus stories to try and scare us, so Sarah started whining. On any other day, I would have agreed with her, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. The ice cream truck then continued towards us, driving incredibly slow around our cul-de-sac. He was still smiling, and his eyes were still trained on the three of us. When he passed us, he even winked. As soon as he disappeared around the corner, we made a mad dash for Tammy and Sarah's house. We locked the doors and then fled to her parents' bedroom. A few minutes go by, and we had all calmed down a bit, and had settled onto her parents' bed to watch some terrible daytime TV like Jerry Springer or something. At that point, out of her parents' window, we saw the ice cream truck stop outside of Ms. Day's house. We didn't know how long he had been there, considering he didn't have the jingle playing. He wasn't parked there very long, and eventually slowly drove away. By this time, we are all hyperventilating. But before we could take a minute to recover, he drove by a third time. This time, however, we saw him get out of the truck in front of Ms. Day's house and walked up towards the front door, examining the outside of the house. He had a pad of paper out and began to jot some things down. We all started panicking at this point as Tammy yelled out, "He's writing down the address!" He returned to the ice cream wagon, and as he started to turn the truck around, he looked up and saw us in the window. We hit the floor like we were under fire and watched him out of a side window. He stopped the truck right in front of Tammy and Sarah's house and jotted more down on his pad of paper. As soon as he drove away that time, we saw our neighbor arrive home from work. In a complete frenzy, we ran over to her, knowing she worked at the police station, and told her what had happened. Ultimately, they found the guy, along with a notepad of descriptions of each of us, the addresses of Ms. Day's house and Tammy and Sarah's house, as well as plans for when he was going to come back for us. The guy was a registered child sex offender, with a warrant out for his arrest. I'm not sure how he got in that position to be selling ice cream to children in the first place, but he was. So now, every time I hear the ice cream wagon jingle, I feel nauseous and unnerved. Don't trust the ice cream trucks. I brought this up to my cousin the other day. 15 years later, we can still recall everything about that morning. 15 years later, we can still hear her screaming. My older cousin and I grew up together. My father only has one sibling, and we all lived at the end of the same road. And so my cousin and I naturally spent a lot of time together. He is a big guy, 6'5", 350 pounds, built like a linebacker. We lived in the middle of nowhere in a small town in the southern US, outskirts of the outskirts, where bumfuck Egypt comes to get away from it all. My backyard opened up into the state forest, hundreds of miles of trees and briar bushes, and the occasional escaped convict. And poisonous snakes, lots of those. It's just like every other morning, as my cousin and I groggily make our way to the bus stop. Our bus driver liked to come at random times, so we often had to wait around for a while and debate on whether or not it's actually important that we finish school. It's 6:20 in the morning, the sun isn't quite up yet. Birds are just starting to chirp. My cousin is in high school, I'm roughly in 4th grade. Naturally, we don't talk much, in our post-sleep stupor. And then, we heard it. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. I looked at my cousin looked at me. Every child knows that jingle. The ice cream truck, yay, the ice cream truck. Except it's 6:30 in the morning, and we don't live anywhere near town. The monkey thought it was all for fun, pop goes the weasel. My cousin tugs on my shirt, pulling me closer to him. His hand is bigger than my shoulder, and he does not let me move from his side. We're looking around, eyeing the trees, wondering how the hell an ice cream truck got all the way out here. Our town didn't even have an ice cream truck back then. There were less than 4,000 people in the town, if that, so there was not an ice cream truck. And then the woman yelled, screamed, a full-throated scream that echoed all over the holler. Help! Help! They're killing me! Help! What? I'm scared, absolutely terrified and shaking. My cousin shushes me and boosts me up on his hip. The jingle continues, and damn if it isn't the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Something heard in every children's movie, played out of every goddamn ice cream truck in the US. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. Help! The bus turns a corner, coming to a stop beside us with a wary hiss. We're frozen, staring at the woods behind us, where we're sure the noise was coming from. But how could it? There was nothing out there but miles and miles of nothing. No houses, no people, not even a road or a path. My cousin hurls me onto the bus and shoves me into a seat, eyes trained on the trees behind us. The bus door slides closed, and we hear it one more time. The monkey thought it all for fun. Pop goes the weasel. Nothing's creepier than an ice cream man. So, when I was younger, I lived in the street that sort of circled around a park. I spent about 10 minutes trying to explain it, but I couldn't. Anyways, I lived on one side of the area, and the only other kid my age lived opposite me. We were the oldest in the street. I was 10 and he was 9 when we met, so we hung out most of the time. Soon enough, we'd been friends for a couple of years, and our families were all friends too. And on New Year's or Christmas, they'd often go with each other to parties, usually at my friend's house. Generally, the parents would all get drunk, and we'd be left to do whatever the hell we liked, since nobody paid attention to the kids. The kids being me, my brother, my friend, and his sister. The 4 of us usually just stuck to playing Spotlight or climbing around on the shed roof, or whatever our parents wouldn't let us do when they were sober. I don't really remember the occasion, but one night, while our parents were having one of their parties, our little group decided that we were going to go to the park, which is a big oval of dead grass. It was about 1 a.m., and my friend's sister, being the youngest, didn't want to go. That left me, my brother, and my friend to go out to the park. I was maybe 14 at the stage, so I was the oldest and the responsible one. We headed off to the park, and we hung out on the swings, and we noticed this big van come crawling down the street real slow. Its headlights were off, it was dark, and I have no clue what color it was. We were immediately alert. We stopped dicking around, and my friend said we should all lie down so that they would not spot us. Especially because you're a girl, he said to me, and we had a brief whispered argument about how he was a sexist dick. But I digress. While we've been arguing, this van had disappeared from our line of sight, so we frantically shuffle around because there's nothing worse than not knowing where something is, and we see the van has come all the way around the park and is now sitting in the cul-de-sac. Of course, we were like, well shit, we're gonna die. After 5 long, painful minutes, the van started up again, and crawled off nice and slow around the park and out of the suburb. And we sprinted back to the house, yelling about what had just happened. Nobody listened in their drunken state, of course. Anyways, days went by, and eventually, the school holidays came, so we could stay up as long as we wanted. We told our parents about the story, but they thought we were just being over-dramatic, and were way more annoyed that we snuck out at 1 a.m. in the morning. As the school holidays went by, I would stay up until 3 a.m. in the morning, because I thought I was just one of those rebel cool kids, you know the type? My friend and I would Skype occasionally. Both our bedrooms are located right at the front of our houses, so I'd see his lights on and he'd see mine, and we'd Skype until one of us fell asleep. Anyways, 1 a.m. comes rolling around again on the holidays and we're Skyping. I heard a car coming down the road and thought it was odd, since I know most of the people in my street, and none of them really went out this late. I look through my window and lo and behold, there's a mysterious van with no headlights creeping past my house. I immediately tell my friend to look out his window, and we watch this van do its rounds, even parking at the cul-de-sac for a couple of minutes, and then creeping off again. This persisted all holidays, every night for 2 weeks, without fail, at 1 to 2 a.m. I even got a few videos so I can prove it to my parents. At this point, they finally believed us. A few weeks later, I'm hanging out at my friend's place. It's late. I was sleeping there because I was home alone for the weekend. Since my parents had taken my brother somewhere, I forget now. So my friend, his sister, and I are all playing video games in his room, when suddenly we hear that goddamn van coming by. My friend's parents were still awake, so we quickly rushed out of the room in fear of whoever was driving would end up peeking through the window and see us. So we told my friend's dad, and he grabbed a metal baseball bat and waited by the front door for the van to stop at the cul-de-sac. Then the dad barges out of the door, yells a whole lot of swearing and insults that our delicate young ears have never heard. He threatened the guy, told him to fuck off, and threatened to call the cops. He stormed out of there with his bat, barefoot in PJs, and just managed to dent the guy's back door as he sped off. Fortunately, we got the number plate too, and reported it to the cops. The whole story was in the newspaper, which I would link, but it discloses a lot of personal information about where I live. We found out later that the person in the van was our local suburb's ice cream man. And if there's one thing you need to know about our local ice cream man, he had an eye patch and about 4 teeth in total. So yeah, that was creepy. Anyways, this lesson turned out a little longer than expected, but to sum up an important life lesson, don't trust the ice cream man, kiddies.